All right. In our second part for this week's review, we talked about how to use the session view in Ableton. And so if we start from this point here, in arrangement view, this is where we left off last time. And we talked about how we can use different things from this area to not only automate parameters of your instruments, but also affect things. So for instance, if I hit the A key in this view, I can open up or strike this button here, open this button. I can get automation of volume, right? And change other parameters from the mixer drop-down menu here at the bottom. Some of these tracks or some of these instruments have a whole lot of parameters, but basically your volume and panning automation all kind of lives in here. If I'm using the pencil tool, remember the pencil tool is engaged by pressing B, and I am holding down the command key as I draw to create free contours. Otherwise, they are adhering to the grid. So I've created some automation here, and we can see the effects of this on the other view, which is called session view over here. So if I hit the tab key, I can toggle between arrangement view and session view. And so if I'm in session view here, I can see my instruments listed here vertically as if it were a mixer. Notice that the volume sliders and the panning knobs are changing according to my automation parameters that I've included over here. If I want to delete that automation, I just simply select it and hit delete. And it will go away. Tabbing back over to the other side reveals that all of that automation has been eliminated. There's no longer a red dot on the knob or slider that is being affected by automation. Notice too that I also see a slider for the master control and reverb and delay effects returns. Ableton will create reverb and delay returns by default, but you can load whichever effect you want to be a global effect in these return slots. Double clicking on either of these slots will reveal their tray down here. You can see the parameters for the effect. For instance, if I want to create more of a high cut on my reverb, I can engage that here. But to send a sound to your effect, let's solo this drum track here. In order to send this sound to my reverb, I would use the sends knob here, the sends A. And I can adjust the mix of the amount of send to that effect. Notice that I can now get volume here. I can turn off the effect by disengaging this activator. Okay, I can also send it to a delay line. If I use the second send or the B sends, again, I can add more effects to these trays as I go if I'd like to. So let me send, oh, I'm sorry, wrong track. You can see very quickly I'm getting some interesting results. Also, I can engage the filter and activate the filter with this LFO, the modulation down here, increase the filter by 100%. And if I lower this to 25% or so, you can hear the filter sweep back and forth. And so that's how I send certain parameters to my global effects. So let me go ahead and establish these two only. Oh, I'm sorry, just the... So if I go back over here to my, well here, first of all, I'll explain these things here are all clip slots. They are spots for creating MIDI loops. To my right, we have a master control strip here where I can launch all of the clips to my left, from right to left. So basically, if I trigger here, if I click this button, it'll trigger all the ones to its left, and so on and so forth. Going over here to my my view over here, I can select clips from my arrangement view. Oops. Let me get out of that and deselect the automation. If I go over here and I select and copy this clip, I can pop it over here into this clip slot right here. Additionally, I can do the same with this clip right here. I can copy it, paste it here. It works best if I label it. If I select my region, I can label it by hitting Command R. Command R. Command R for bass. Oops. And Command R for drums. Go back over here, and if I copy and paste these clips here, I can label them better. Oops, excuse me. I can label them better by popping them into here. Now, because they're loaded in clip slots, they're more dynamic. I can use the global stop button here to stop all clips. I can use the play button on the master one here to trigger them. I can trigger only one. If I hit the master stop, I can trigger only one at a time. But notice that when I do trigger them, they wait for the downbeat according to my metronome. That's because there is a quantization setting for the triggering of clips, or the launching of clips, and that's in this launch quantization drop-down menu here. If I select a half note, it'll wait a half note. If I select a quarter note, it'll wait a quarter note. Okay, if I select none, I have free control over all trip launching. Notice that they are not quite in sync. So it pays, if you're doing beat-driven music, to have it at least set to 1 bar or something to that effect, so that you have some sort of tempo control over the launching of your clips or scenes. Now, it is also interesting to note that we can set up, now that we have some clips loaded into our instruments here, we have a whole lot of potential here. I can now arrange my music according to these scenes. So let's rename by Command R this first master scene as my introduction, or my intro. Now I can go here and say this is verse 1. Down here I can go to chorus 1. Oops. Maybe I want a track that is just drums only. And then I can arrange my parts accordingly. So let's say my introduction, I want it to be just drums and bass. I can move my clips around here. I can copy and paste them so that I can also have bass and drums. Oops. Copy and paste here. Let's say I want now just drums and drums only here. So that means I now have a series of sections composed per each instrument. So let's start with my introduction. I'm also going to lower my tempo. Let's go to 90. 90. Okay, now I can go to verse 1 and trigger that. Okay, now I'm going to go to drums only. And now I can go back to introduction. So because this is loaded in this way and it's oriented this way, I now have a performable space. I have an instrument that I've created where I can trigger the playback of certain sections of music. Further, I can record the presentation of this stuff in arrangement view. So if you notice, I have anything that I do on session view, I can record over here in arrangement view. Let me go ahead and clear this out. And by doing so, it's fine. I still have these clips over here. But by creating a new situation over here, by deleting everything, I can go back over here, go to my global setting, global record, double stop to start at the beginning. And once I record, it's asking for me to trigger something. So as I play this, it's listening on the other side and it's recording my decisions. So as I go to the next section, it will respond. More things to note is that if I adjust the volume, it'll also record those actions. Okay, if I go back to drums only, I can activate or deactivate effects freely, and so on and so forth. So let me hit stop and I'll go back over here to my arrangement view. If I like what I've done, I will click this orange button here to show me the changes that I've done. And if there's a red dot over any of this stuff, it means that it's recorded automation. So if I click the automation pane, you'll see that there are things that have been engaged and disengaged, and it's recorded all those things. So if I go back over here and hit play, it will play my my particular performance. Furthermore, I can map any of these buttons to any MIDI instrument or knob or any key on my QWERTY keyboard. So let's start with keyboard mapping. So if I hit the key button here and select the first scene trigger, press the number 1, I can map this trigger onto my number 1 key, and so on and so forth. Once I'm done, I just deselect this. Now my 1 key will start this scene, my 2 key will start this one, my 3 key will start that one, and my 4 key will start that one. So that makes me be able to engage this in a musical way. Furthermore, if I had a MIDI controller hooked up, which I unfortunately don't do right now, I can select my MIDI keyboard, either knobs, buttons, or actual keys, or modulation wheel, pitch bend. All that stuff can trigger any of these effects. So what I'd like us to do this week is to try to make a performance that you record into Arrangement View that you can then export as an audio file. So to export it as an audio file, please go up to the File menu, Export Audio and Video. If you want an MP3, you'll have to go to the MP3 encoder activator and say On. Hit Export, and it'll ask you where to save, and it'll save an audio file of your project. Please be in touch if you have any questions.